His father was a community philanthropist involved in charitable works such as Newsboys Lodging Home, Miss Lattery's Night School for Italian Children, and various hospitals. His mother, Martha Roosevelt, an active supporter of the Union War who sent medical and care packages. Theodore Roosevelt, who was born on October 27, 1858, was born in New York City. His early jobs was New York legislator, a rancher, a art author, civil service commissioner, and New York City Board of Police commissioners, and assistant secretary of the Navy. He was born with asthma.
All grown up, Teddy Roosevelt married Alice Hathaway Lee on his 22nd birthday. Along came their first child, Alice Lee. After childbirth, Alice Hathaway Lee passed away from a kidney failure. On the same day, Teddy's mom, Martha, dies. 10 years later, Teddy got married to Edith, his longtime friend and childhood sweetheart. Overall, Teddy had 6 children: Alice, Theodore Jr., Kermit, Ethel, Archie, and Quinn. Little Alice didn't get along with their stepmom because their personalities were way different. Alice was outgoing and Edith was more reserved. Teddy Jr. and Alice were really close, so he would cheer her on.
Go, go, go! Stab her! Stab her! Stab her!
Kermit was a fierce defender of his father as a young boy.
I love you, Dad. You're cool.
Archie, as a young child, got really ill. He was sick as a little kid, but he survived.
Yeah.
Quinn was humorous and was
funny. Haha.
he'd make a lot of trouble around the White House, and he made a White House gang with all his best friends.
In 1882, Teddy Roosevelt was elected to the New York Assembly. 2 years later, in 1884, Teddy Roosevelt left the Assembly in the midst of personal tragedy, the death of his first wife and mother on the same day. For the next 2 years, he went to the Dakota Territory to become a cowboy, hunter, rancher, and the local sheriff. Theodore Roosevelt was appointed president of the New York City Police Department. He helped rid corruption in that department.
You're under arrest.
President McKinley appointed Roosevelt Assistant Secretary of the Navy, where he helped to ready the naval forces for war. Resigning his position in the Navy, he organized the cavalry known as the Rough Riders and headed down to Cuba for the short 109-day war. Roosevelt ran alongside McKinley to be his vice president in the election of 1900. 6 months into his term, McKinley is shot and Roosevelt becomes the 26th president of the United States.
On September 14, 1901, at the age of 42, Roosevelt becomes the 26th President of the U.S. and is sworn into office at about 3:15 p.m. at the Ansley Wilcox Mansion. He is the youngest man ever to become president. May 22, 1902, he established Crater Lake National Park along with 4 other national parks. On December 31st, 1902, Theodore Roosevelt settles the Venezuelan affair.
Stop fighting! Okay.
November 18th, 1903, he signs a treaty with Panama for building the Panama Canal. November 8th, 1904, Roosevelt is re-elected president over Democrat Alton Parker.
Parker, Parker.
Roosevelt. June 2nd, 1905, Wichita Forest in Oklahoma was made the first federal game preserve. Others established by Theodore Roosevelt are the Grand Canyon, Fire Island, Alaska,
It's colder here.
National Bison Range in Montana. March 4th, 1905, Roosevelt was inaugurated for second term as president.
We need a better America. It's time for change. Whoop whoop.
On February 17th, 1906, the marriage of his daughter Alice to Ohio Congressman Nicholas Longworth in a magnificent White House ceremony. June 8, 1906, he signed the National Monuments Act.
Sign that treaty.
June 11, 1906, the Forest Homestead Act is signed. June 29, 1906, he signs the Hepburn Act giving Interstate Commerce Commission powers to regulate railroad trade. June 30th, 1906, he signs the Pure Food and Drug Act and Federal Meat Inspection Law.
Yummy.
November 8th through the 26th in 1906, he and Mrs. Roosevelt go to Panama to inspect the building of the canal. This is the first time a president leaves the U.S. while in office. December 10th, 1906, he is awarded the Nobel Prize for ending the Russo-Japanese War in 1905. He is the first American with a Nobel Prize in any of the 6 categories. He received it while in Europe in 1910.
Woo!
March 4th, 1909, Theodore Roosevelt's presidency ends with an inauguration of success.
Wah.
Roosevelt was president for about 8 years.
Roosevelt left the presidency in 1909 and went on an African safari. Soon after returning, he went right back into politics. In 1912, he ran for president against Taft. In October, during his campaign, John Strain shot Roosevelt. Strain was an assassin who was later committed into an asylum. Roosevelt wasn't seriously injured and refused to see a doctor until he delivered his speech, which was an hour and a half long. Despite efforts, Woodrow Wilson was elected. Roosevelt created the Bull Moose Party. It split the Republican Party so much, which is the reason that Wilson won. After losing the 1912 election, he and his son Kermit embarked a voyage into the jungles of Brazil to explore the River of Doubt in the Amazon region. He contracted malaria and suffered a serious infection after injuring his leg in a boat accident. On January 6, 1919, Teddy Roosevelt died in his sleep from a coronary embolism. All of his family and friends attended his funeral. After his death, Theodore Roosevelt was enshrined on Mount Rushmore alongside George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Abraham Lincoln.